Welcome to Business Not 101, hosted by me, Olivier Bousset, founder, entrepreneur, podcast creator. In this episode, we explore the founder's journey from their aha moment to the roadblocks and problems, to what they would have done differently in hindsight, and the unique solutions they came up with. I hope you enjoy this episode. Hi, Artmiz. How are you?
Hi, Oliver. Good. How are you?
Great. Thank you. Thanks for joining us today on Business Not 101.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Pleasure. Okay, let's get right into it. So please introduce yourself and give us your 60-second business pitch.
Sounds good. I'm Artmiz Golkaramnay, and I'm the co-founder of LATYS. And let's get on with the elevator pitch. So if you've ever experienced bad connectivity, you know how frustrating it can be. This crappy wireless connection could be your cell service, it could be your Wi-Fi connection, or even a private network you're connected to for whatever reason. What you may not already know is that in most cases, your bad connection is actually not the fault of your device. One of the main reasons why coverage and capacity of networks are limited, why infrastructure costs can be high, is because of the way we design and implement wireless networks today. So with LATYS's technology, we are changing the way networks are built. We use the available frequency, time, and space to improve network coverage, capacity, and throughput, while we lower the infrastructure's overall cost. Without getting too technical, with our LATYS networking approach, we're basically placing energy where it needs to be instead of spraying it all around and then hoping that it reaches a destination.
That's really interesting. Yeah, that is a bit technical, but I get the concept. It's really cool. So what was your aha moment behind this? Where did it come from that you decided, I need to launch this business?
So I had an aha moment for starting a business in general, and maybe I'll talk about that and then we'll get specifically to LATYS. But so for my graduate studies, I was researching improving 5G mmWave networks. And during my defense, one of the committee members, after, they all asked all the technical questions about our study and our approach and everything, one of the committee members asked a question that I wasn't really sure how to, and he asked how we were planning on convincing service providers to use the method that we had come up with in our research. And I thought a little bit about it and how hard it was to convince one of the service providers in Quebec, I won't name names, to share their user data with us. And I actually ended up generating some of that data randomly myself for our research because we actually couldn't convince them to share their customer data with us. So that gentleman's question about how was I going to convince them to use deep learning techniques to service their customers, well, my answer was that we probably wouldn't. And that's what I told the committee member, that this was just research. And as much as I'd hoped for someone to see those results and decide to implement it, my advisors and I had actually not had a conversation about how we were going to convince them to do that. But that question actually brought me to think how much cool research was being done at universities, but it was never seeing the light of day. And so when I came across an incubator whose sole job was to look at university research and find teams and find markets and products to actually bring those ideas into the market, I thought it would be cool to check them out. So that's what I did.
That's like a really great aha moment and sort of serendipitous, or how you say the word. But yeah, it was like everything sort of lined up for you and you were able to really move forward with that idea. Now, you said you found the incubator. Did you apply for it, or did they come seek you out from university?
So I came across an entrepreneurship training program that the incubator was offering after my graduation. And through that training program, I found out that they actually hire entrepreneurs to become what they call entrepreneur in residences, or EIRs, at the incubator. And then they help those EIRs to come up with ideas, to build teams around those ideas and launch a company. And so I decided to, when they gave me the offer, I decided to join.
That's really cool. Yeah. Okay. And so looking at that, what was the biggest roadblock you felt you're going to have with your project moving forward?
So what I was most afraid of was my lack of experience. I had just graduated from graduate school, from graduate studies in electrical and computer engineering. And honestly, I thought that starting a company meant that I'd have to have worked in the industry for decades. I'd have to have a lot of different kinds of experience around, working with teams, around managing teams, around even budgets, managing the finances of the company and all of that. But what I learned through my experience with the incubator was that I would actually get to learn about all of those aspects by doing it, obviously. So there's no better way to learn than to actually roll up your sleeves and do it. But it also gave me the opportunity to look at all the other incubated ventures at that incubator, see what mistakes they were making potentially and try to avoid those mistakes, or see what good decisions they were making and try to replicate those. So I didn't necessarily need to experience everything firsthand for myself. I could try and take advantage of that collective wisdom that existed. And so that's what I ended up doing.
It's a really interesting point, something that I don't hear often, because most of the people I interview have either launched or they're solo entrepreneurs or they're parts of a bigger group. But it's a great point. You're in an ecosystem, in a startup ecosystem, but with mentors that are on site that have tons of experience, and you have a whole bunch of other people who are running their own business, starting their own business. And do you think this is something that really propelled you forward because it gave you a huge amount of information? Or did you feel maybe also it's kind of like overwhelming because you have all these little businesses that are taking up time and energy to the mentor? So do you feel like it's more of like a school environment or more of like a club environment where everybody has the same destination?
So for me, it's definitely more of a school environment. For the mentors themselves, I can't speak for them. It's maybe overwhelming for them having all of these different entrepreneurs asking them a million different questions, pulling them in a million different directions. But for me, it was a really steep learning experience where in the first few months of my time at the incubator, I learned more than I expected myself to have learned with years in the industry. And so for that, I definitely see it as more of a school experience. But don't get me wrong, it's definitely very overwhelming. There's a lot of information being thrown at you. So you kind of do need to take a lot of what you hear and apply your own lens and your own filter to it, and then apply it to what you think. So the incubator that I'm at is really focused on developing companies that have university-backed research behind them, but that's very broad. It could be, a hardware company, it could be a software company, it could be a combination of the two. So learning from these different experiences that people were having, building all of these different kinds of companies was also very helpful.
That's really interesting. And sort of leads into my next question. If you can leave yourself a voice message, go back in time and say, here's what I've learned and I should change, what would it be?
So one of the things I started realizing very early on was that cold reach outs are hard. And it's not hard when you get rejected. It's actually really hard when you don't hear back from the person. And I understand that a lot of folks get a lot of messages and they think, it's a CRM sending out an automated reminder for them to reply. So they kind of ignore it if they don't have the time. And they don't realize sometimes there was a real person sitting there waiting for them, hoping for them to answer. So that was one of the things that I struggled with a lot at the beginning. And I think if I were to go back, I would tell myself to kind of just, trust the process, keep reaching out to more folks. Someone will answer. And to be fair, some of the most interesting conversations I've had around entrepreneurship, some of the most inspiring conversations I've had around entrepreneurship have been when I sent a random person, a LinkedIn message asking for a few minutes of their time, and then they responded and it turned into basically a mentorship session that I didn't even expect to have. And then another advice I think I would have for myself is to trust that I also have something to offer. I may not realize it at the time, and it may not be evident, from the first few minutes of the conversation, but at one point I may also say something that might be useful to them. And this is something I've heard from the folks that I did reach out to, and they did end up responding to me. So
that's great. And it's so true, though. We all can give our piece of advice. So that's really great. So now sort of switching gears a little bit on this, you guys are only starting, so you don't really have a marketing plan in place, but what's one thing you're doing to grow your audience, your community around your business?
So one of the first things we needed to do was to figure out where we wanted to enter the market in. And that was a decision that needed to be made early on, because that would define how we would design our product. And the reason it was kind of difficult for us to narrow that down was because the problems in wireless communication exist across a lot of different kinds of applications. Like I was saying, your cell phone could be having this problem through 4G, 3G, Wi-Fi, or any other kind of network, wireless network that you could think of. But our solution can also solve all of those pain points in all of those applications. So what we needed to do was to decide on one of those markets to start with. And the decision couldn't just be simply pick the first one. There had to be a good thought process behind it. And the engineers that we decided to, come up with like a decision-making matrix, basically, where we look at the market, see where these pain points are the greatest, where can our technology and design shine the most, and which one of these markets are really the largest. So even if we grab a small percentage of it, it'll still be a good chunk. And so that landed us on the Industry 4.0 market. The Industry 4.0 market is basically the fourth industrial revolution. And the reason it's happening is because there's demand for it from the market. And so that basically validated that part, that there's a need for it. Then we needed to make sure that we could actually answer the needs, their wireless connectivity and security needs. And we actually could. And so we decided to gear our design towards that. And honestly, to go back to why we even had to pick one of these markets to start with, one of those conversations, those random conversations that I was having with an entrepreneur, was that he was saying that there is no such thing as broad. You either focus on something, or you have a broad view of a bunch of things. And so if you want to be successful at solving one particular problem, then you need to focus on that. And so that was the reason that we decided to pick one market, design a solution for it. Even though our solution can be applied across a lot of different applications, just pick one, make a product for it, prove yourself in that market, and then go after the rest of the market if you still want to. And so with that, I ended up having a lot of conversations with folks in the Industry 4.0 market. And how I found them was mostly through LinkedIn, but also through my network and my network's network. So I would just, reach out to old colleagues, old friends, and saying, I'm looking into this area. Do you know anyone who's, for example, in robotics, works at this specific company? And I would get warm intros, because they're a lot less scary than cold intros, where, you just reach out to someone and hope that they respond. And so through that, I was able to make a lot of connections. Another resource that we used that was really helpful was the Quebec German delegation. So the Industry 4.0 market is actually, like, the entire push for this market came from, the German manufacturing industry. And so there is a dedicated group of folks who are working, there's also Canadian, German delegations and all of that. But with government help, our tax dollars are paying for these resources to be made available. And so we are taking advantage of that as well. And they've been very helpful.
Looking at those associations is something I never thought of. That's really interesting.
Yeah, they've been very helpful to us. I recommend.
Excellent. So switching gears a little bit again now, but it's sort of in the same realm. What excites you about your industry? What are the trends that makes you say, yeah, this is the way to go? Or what makes you nervous that, changes are happening? Certainly around, for example, 5G, there was a lot of hesitance around it, even though it seemed to come from nowhere. So what do you think?
Interesting question. So with 5G, I do have to say this. I think us technologists, academics, everyone needs to do a better job at communicating what it is that we're doing with words that scare people less or don't scare people at all. We tend to pick words that kind of explain things very technically and correctly, obviously, but then they end up creating a bit of hysteria, maybe. And it leaves a lot of room for interpretation for people who may not necessarily have a deep understanding of everything technical behind it. So with everything 5G, I think hopefully with 6G we can do better. But to go back to the first part of your question about what excites me about our industry, is that we have a real solution here. So the wireless connectivity is a real part of all of our lives today. Like the call you and I are on right now, we're obviously using Wi-Fi. We have wireless connection. I had a wireless headphone, Bluetooth, wireless connection. You are probably using some wireless connected joysticks, maybe sometimes to play games, maybe your keyboard or mouse. My mouse is wireless right now. So all of these, they're a real integral part of our lives today. So to be able to improve all of these different wireless connections is really important. It's actually going to affect everyone's quality of life. And somebody really smart one day said to me, a really good customer experience is one that they don't notice. So if you have a really good connection and they don't even think about whether or not that thing is going to lose connection at 1 minute or not, that's when you've been successful. And that's what we're hoping to do with LATYS.
Yeah, that's so true. We only notice today when things are broken.
Yeah.
That is something somebody said. It's true. All right, that's amazing. Okay, we're going to switch a little bit of gear for real this time. And this is going to be the part where I talk to you about you as an entrepreneur and ask you questions as an entrepreneur, even a new entrepreneur, a budding entrepreneur, but little things that people want to know. So first question I have, what makes you really productive? What is something that you do or your setup that makes you productive as an entrepreneur that you feel anyway?
So it's really easy for me to stay productive when I have a lot to do. And this is something that has been true for me all through my life. It's not just an entrepreneurship thing. And so when I have a lot to do, I just have no choice but to get them done. And so I do them. And I am a list maker. Like it's how I was built. My brain works better when I have lists of things. Because if I try to keep a mental list of things, I'll keep worrying that I'm going to forget. And so writing down a list, whether it's on my phone or in an actual Post-it note, really helps. And then the satisfaction I get out of crossing off an item off of that to-do list is really, really something. And I guess another thing that helps me with productivity is that I really don't like waiting until last minute to do something. And so if I have something that I need to deliver, I'd rather just do it right as when I learn about it than to just wait until it's due. And I know there's some people who really thrive on that last minute rush. I had a friend in college who used to say, if you wait until the last minute, then it only takes a minute. But I'm not one of those people. And so I like making lists and crossing items off of those lists to get on to my next task.
That's so funny. And what I really laugh about is because I'm in technology too, and I still use pen and paper. So not only do I write a journal every day, but that's more for it.
Yeah, I'm holding up my pen and paper for you to see.
I know. But it's so funny how many people I know that are programmers or that use technology as an integral part of their business, that they still refer to everything they do as a checklist physically and touch their pens and pencils. So it's really funny. And I'm with you on that. I love trying not to wait till last minute. I do the 2-minute rule. So if it could take 2 minutes or less, I get it done right away. And that I try my best. But I'm also a horrible procrastinator. And I watch TikTok a lot more than I should. But I guess it could be worse. All right. That's great. Now, we talked earlier about, so this is one of the questions I asked people about mentorship, but you are in a unique situation that you have multiple mentors at the location, at the incubator. But do you feel like, are you going to carry on with the mentors even afterwards?
For sure. And I know that it's kind of built into the process of the program to have these relationship with these mentors, but unless it happens naturally and organically in the process of you getting to know someone, I don't think it actually ends up working long term. And that's the reason that I think I will continue those relationships after the program is over for us, because it wasn't, the relationships I've built with my mentors, they didn't happen because, they had to happen. They happened because we spent some time together, started realizing that, oh yeah, there are things that the person can offer and there are things that I'd like to learn from them. And then that happened. But even outside of the incubator, like the conversations I was saying that I've had with the entrepreneurs that I've reached out to over the last couple of years have happened because the person was just willing to share their experiences. Maybe they had positive experiences that they wanted to share, or maybe they had not so positive experiences that they wanted to warn somebody else off about. So yeah. So we also have a technical advisory board and just, a general advisory board of folks that we have something to say in the industry, either in the market that we want to enter or in one of the future markets that we're interested in. And their mentorship, their guidance has really been invaluable. You do, like you said, have to spend something in those instances to get that reward of their mentorship, but for us, it's been definitely worth it.
Okay, that's really interesting. There's a cost to being able to grow and scale a business from scratch. And I think there's a lot of times where we overlook that when we're starting businesses. We sort of, muddle through everything ourselves. So that's really interesting. All right. So because you're a small team, right? How many people are in your startup?
We are 5 right now.
Okay. So
and growing.
It's good stuff. Excellent. Do you guys have plan? This is one of the questions I always ask people because it's something I really close to my heart. Do you guys have anything for well-being? Like, how do you guys decompress? How do you keep, your morale up?
Absolutely. So, I mean, one of the things I think is really important, especially nowadays with, a lot of work from home and only some people going into the office and all of that, is to stay flexible to everyone's needs and understand that we're all people, we're all humans, we all have different kinds of needs. So if, someone wants more flexible hours than, around the company and team's needs, then absolutely provide it if you can. If they want, fixed hours, 9 to 5, and they don't want to work outside of that, if it's possible, definitely work that in. But we also try to have these casual chats, casual check-ins daily, where we just all kind of start our day together while we're sipping on our morning coffees or morning teas and do that. We try to have regular team lunches, team meals in general. They're not always lunches. But so through the incubator also, we have this committee called the Happiness Committee, whose job is to create happiness. And so through that committee, which I am a proud member of, kind of like the PPC, the party planning committee from the show The Office, except we have less drama. We plan activities, and we try to plan a variety of activities, hikes for the outdoorsy folks and game nights for the ones who like to stay in, and movie nights if someone just really wants to do something in the office physically and doesn't want to get out, and and everything in between. And from the attendance that some of those events get, we kind of get a sense of what folks are enjoying more, and then we try to do more of one and less of the other if it's less popular.
That's really interesting. I love that. All right. So the one question that I ask everybody, and I think this is probably became one of my favorite, is what is one book, whether a business or a non-business related, that has helped you in your business career?
Okay. There are a lot of really good books. I knew you were going to ask this. I've given this some thought, by the way.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of good books around building, lean startup, management guides, technical group management guides, all of it. So it's kind of hard to pick just one, but I have given this some thought, and I'm going to give you okay, this will actually tell you how little I knew about the VC world before I started LATYS. So when I was first thinking about venture capital backed startups, actually on the first couple of days that I started to talk to someone about it, I started noticing that they're throwing out a lot of terms that didn't make 100% sense to me, or maybe I knew what they meant, but I wasn't sure exactly what it meant in the context that they were using it. And these were terms around like raising capital, raising money, capital structure, all of that. So this one book explained a lot of those concepts very clearly and very basically. And the book is called Venture Deals by Brad Feld and Jason Mendelson. You can obviously listen to the audiobook, but there are some interesting and useful tables and examples to look at. So if you can get your hand on the physical copy of the book, it'll be good. But the funny thing is that the whole title of the book is Venture Deals, Be Smarter Than Your Lawyer and Venture Capitalist. And that's just good advice all around for everyone. But as we were talking about mentors and, folks around you who can help you, I've come to learn that there's a lot to learn. That's one thing I've learned, is that there's a lot to learn. And so that book will, at least for me, it helped simply explain some of the concepts. But I still heavily rely on our lawyers and my mentors to really explain deeply what, one of those situations mean in our context, if I'm ever confused about anything. And I think you obviously want to understand every term you're about to sign off on when you're, doing a financing round, or you're agreeing to something, you're putting your signature down on the paper. So that book helped me.
Really interesting. I never heard of that book before. I'm going to check it out.
It's not a new book either. I think it's been around for a while and they've just updated the content a little bit here and there. It's just been really useful at, like I said, just getting the basic concepts defined for me.
The business jargon. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
I assume it has to be updated because they constantly change. It's interesting. All right. My next question is, what famous entrepreneur, alive or dead, would you like to go to coffee with and pick their brain if you could?
Can it be more than one person?
Yes.
Can it be more than just coffee? Can we like do a brunch with like a bunch of kick-ass women?
Yes. Yeah. 100%.
Like we'll invite Anne-Marie Slaughter and Sheryl Sandberg and Ariana Huffington and Susan Wojcicki and just like everybody else who I'm going to regret forgetting their names. And then we'll send out an invite to everyone. Oh, and Oprah. We got to invite Oprah to this brunch.
Excellent. Excellent. It's going to be a very expensive brunch. But why? Like,
It'll be worth it.
Well, yeah, for sure. For sure. I guess that, Oprah Winfrey, just getting there. But what's the one person we really would like to have a coffee with and say, or a brunch and say, I need to pick your brains. This is like, something unique about that person.
So the reason I'd like to do this brunch, actually, we should do an annual brunch so we can like keep updating the information that I'm taking in. For me, it's so that I can see the world through their perspective. Every time I talk to someone and I try to understand the world from their perspective and the experiences that they've gone through. It's just been so enlightening to me. And so sitting around a table with a bunch of women who I admire or admire something that they've done in their career, or that maybe I want to replicate some part of their career in mine, would really be helpful and exciting to me.
Yeah, I agree. And it would be amazing just to be like a fly on the wall to one event like that. So That's amazing. All right. My last question. How can people reach you? What's the best way to reach out to you and connect with you and sort of talk to you?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn under my name, Artmiz Golkaramnay, and maybe you'll share the link so I don't have to spell my whole name. And if they want to learn more about LATYS, they can find us at latys.ca. That's LATYS spelled with LATYS. We misspelt it on purpose because we're a startup, and why wouldn't you? And we also have a company LinkedIn under the same name. Please do feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you, whether you want to start your entrepreneurship journey or you're at the end of it and all the way in between. If you want to invest in LATYS, if you want to, be a customer of LATYS, feel free to reach out. I'll be happy to chat.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an amazing pleasure to have you on.
Thank you very much for having me, Oliver. This is really fun.
Thank you for joining us today and listening to this episode of Business Not 101. I hope that this interview gave you some valuable insights and that will help you along your business journey. If you have any questions, comments, feel free to reach out to me. And as always, please like, share, and follow. Thank you. Until next episode.